Hello, everybody. Welcome to the That Girl podcast. I'm your host, Alexis Jacqueline Smith. This is my first episode, so let me start with a little introduction. Actually, just so you're like, what is this about today? Today's episode is going to be about stop letting people define you, okay? But let's get to the introduction. So, my name is Alexis Jacqueline Smith. I am an actress. I'm also a server. I am somebody who discovered law of assumption and manifestation and yada 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 recently within the last 6 months, and it has honestly changed my life. I'm not going to delve too deeply into those topics because I'm not like 100% an expert on those. I can only speak to how this understanding has influenced my life for the better. 6 months ago, I was at complete rock bottom. Not to be dramatic, but that's how it felt. I was just severely unhappy. But when I really look back at my life, I had been routinely unhappy. I had been routinely hurt and sad and sometimes destroyed. And now, since I've discovered this law of assumption, manifestation, stoicism, yada, 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 it has truly helped me gain control over my life. I feel way better about myself. I have way more confidence. I feel way more beautiful. I'm visibly more beautiful because of how I'm viewing myself now. I have just an abundance of confidence, abundance of security. I don't freak out as much anymore. And that's why I'm making this podcast, because truly, like, I want to share this with others, so people that did feel like me in the past, worried, anxious, scared, angry, out of control, they can finally feel calm, confident, beautiful, and all that stuff. So let's get to the first episode, because I think this is one of the most important concepts ever if you want to become that girl. Now, what is that girl? Why is this the That Girl podcast? Because every girl wants to be that girl, right? Whether you are a teenager or a full-grown adult woman, you want to be that girl. Who is that girl? That girl is somebody that's confident, that has her life together, that is calm, that is non-reactive, that decides what she's going to care about and doesn't let people get to her. That is that girl. I'm talking about the girl that walks into a room, everybody turns heads, everybody looks and is like, wow, who is that? That's that girl. And if you feel like you've always wanted to be that person, but you never could, I'm telling you, you can. Because I felt that way about myself. I felt like I couldn't be loved. I wasn't interesting. I also didn't really understand who I was. I would always felt like a eclectic mess of things, but never actually a person. I didn't know who I was because I wasn't being my own person. That's the number one thing, is not being your own person. And this episode is about not letting people define you. So let's get into that. Because the minute you stop letting people define you and instead define yourself, you will become that girl. So what do I mean by letting people define you? So let's say you grew up and you had a sister, right? And your sister, everyone's like, oh my God, she's the pretty sister and you're the smart sister, right? Let's say that. And now the pretty sister feels like, oh, well, she can never do AP classes and be a doctor because she's not the smart sister. She's just a pretty sister. So she just has to find a man to marry because that's what pretty girls do. And the smart sister is like, well, I'm not that pretty, so I shouldn't put any effort into my appearance. And I can't wear that because I'm not pretty. So I'm just going to study and put my nose in the books and this, that, and the third. Like the plot of Modern Family, right? You have the two sisters. One is the pretty, whatever girl that's promiscuous, whatever. And the other one's really smart, but they kind of have this bit of she's not as cool as the other sister or whatever. But if you think about it, and this is just a TV show. But what I will say is that TV shows are very important also, because if someone can invent a storyline, that means that it is imaginable. It means that it could occur, right? And it probably is occurring for some people. But at what point does the pretty sister stop letting her family's identity of her influence her ability to do things that are quote unquote smart? Why should the pretty sister not go to med school? Why should the pretty sister not feel like she can run a business or do this or do that just because people said, oh, you're the pretty sister? Who cares? Why should the smart sister feel like she can't be beautiful? Why should the smart sister feel like she can't be held in high regard and like be desirable and be gorgeous? Like, you never know. This is the first key. You never know why somebody has put a definition on you. Because half the time when somebody says something about you, not half the time, I'm not going to say it's half the time, you have to have your own, you have to have your own sense of self and truly look inward to see if someone's perception of you is actually valid or not, is what I'm trying to say. Because sometimes people will say something about you because they just want you to be that, right? They want you to be that. So they're going to define you as that because they want you to be that. Like Troy Bolton in High School Musical, his dad's like, you are a basketball guy. He ain't a basketball guy. He wants to be a musical theater person. But his dad's like, you're a basketball guy. Is he actually a basketball guy, or is that just the definition that's been placed on him because his family, his father wants him to be the basketball guy when he's really the dancer and the singer, right? So that's the thing, like his whole life, he had this identity that he really didn't even vibe with because he let his family tell him who he was going to be. And I haven't seen High School Musical in a long time. Maybe that's not the plot, but the point still stands. So you have to really look inward and see what definitions have been placed upon you or that you have placed upon yourself that you no longer want to be defined by. So for example, like, that's the thing. Sometimes people put definitions on you. Sometimes you put definitions on yourself because of your own insecurities, right? So you feel like, oh, I'm unlovable because, I don't know, maybe you have a difficult relationship with your parents or like you had been cheated on before or something like that. And you just feel unlovable. You're like, I'm gonna never be loved. No one will love me. That is you putting that definition on yourself. And when you put that definition on yourself, you are going to get that treatment. That is what the law of assumption is, essentially. I'm not an expert, but I'm just going to tap on it very quickly. It's like you assume things about yourself, about your circumstance, about your situation, and then those things manifest, those things unfold because that's what you are assuming about your life. And in terms of being that girl, being the girl that walks into a room that's cool, calm, collected, that is confident, that is beautiful, if you assume you are confident and you are beautiful, you will come off confident and beautiful. It might not be immediate. I'm not saying it can't be immediate because it could be immediate. If you released your inhibitions, okay, sorry. If you really like released the hold of the definition that you are not confident and you are not beautiful, if you really released that and got rid of it immediately and adapted that assumption about yourself that you are beautiful and you are confident, you will immediately show off as you will immediately show off as beautiful and confident. Immediately. That is the fact. But sometimes we have a lot of resistance, so it takes a lot more affirmations, it takes a lot more techniques to rewire our brain to see ourselves beautiful. Let me tell you a little story real quick. In 2019, there was this concept of Instagram face, which is still going on, but like where we had all these filters that would make your face look a certain way, and then people were literally making their face look a certain way. And my face didn't look like that. Like my nose, I love my nose now, but I used to hate my nose. I didn't like my lips. I didn't like my eyes. I didn't like my cheekbones. I was like, oh my God, like I wanted to have like the big cheekbones, the big lips, the small, tiny nose, the chin, whatever. I was like, when I get money, I'm going to do all this stuff to myself, right? I used to want like really skinny legs and like this and then like that and, you know, boob job, whatever. And because that was what I thought beauty was. That's what I thought I should look like. And then, you know, eventually I kind of got over it. In 2020, when the whole world shut down, you know, you really were just like, I really had to just look at myself constantly, and I wasn't wearing makeup, and I never really like felt the need to wear makeup. That is the truth. Like I liked wearing makeup, I liked doing makeup looks, but I would go outside without makeup. And what I'll say is, if you are unable to do that, I think that's a little bit of a problem because you have to be comfortable with your naked, bare self. If you are not comfortable with your naked, bare self, you need to work on that because it's possible to be comfortable and love that version of yourself. And if you think it's not, that is a limiting belief. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I eventually got comfortable with my face. I no longer like really cared about changing it, but I also did not love it either, right? I didn't really like love myself. I didn't really like love my body. I was like, oh, okay, you're okay. Like you're an 8, whatever, 7.5, like you're fine, you know? I was like, if I put makeup on, like I look really good, but like, you know, I didn't hate myself. I was accepting of myself, but I really also did not hold myself in high regard, right? Now that I like built myself up because I was at rock bottom. I had to rebuild my life. I had to rebuild who I was, my sense of self, because I was already doing that anyway because I had to redefine myself in the first place because I had been so intertwined with others around me that I did not understand who I was as a person. And so once I had to be on my own, like first, like as my own human being and restart, I got to get a sense of things that I actually like, how I feel about things, and really look inward at myself and also look outward at my outer appearance, and really like see myself. And I was listening to these subliminals and like hyping myself up, like feeling good about myself. And eventually I was like really looking, I have a mirror over there. I was looking at myself and I was like, wow, you actually are beautiful. You are gorgeous. Why do I think I'm not beautiful? It's stupid, right? And when I tell you, I used to walk through places. Now, people would hit on me, right? But there were always like people who are crazy. Like, I would get hit on by the most psychotic people on the planet. Still do. But, they're never going to stop. That's a limiting belief, but I don't care. It's funny. Um, but I never thought I'd be the girl, like, I'd walk into a room and everyone would look at me, right? I always used to think, like, oh my God, I'm the ugly friend. Like, I'm not the pretty friend. Like, I'm not the skinniest. I'm not the prettiest. I'm so tall and like, yada, yada, yada. I didn't really care about being tall, but I also felt like it was like undesirable, but I was okay. And that's the thing with the self-acceptance movement. I don't like it sometimes because you're accepting yourself as less than, and that's not the point. You need to accept that you're amazing, not that you're less than and get used to being less than. No. Anyway, let's move on. After I had been talking to myself like that and like really believing that I'm beautiful and I'm gorgeous and like really, even before I found these manifestation things and like law of assumption, I was putting a lot more focus on exercising. I really have developed a body that I'm proud of. And that's not to say like, oh, you have to look this way to be proud of it. What I'm saying is that I really was able to become the person that I want to be, who I want to be. I don't have giant boobs like I wanted. My nose isn't different. Like, I just became a version of myself that I love because I was doing that self-love. I was pouring self-love into me. And this is the thing. It's all about perception. Because people tell me today, like, oh my God, your hair is so beautiful. Like, you have amazing hair. Like, I have curly hair if you're listening to this, but I'm also recording it on video. But I have big curly hair. And people are like, oh my God, your hair's so beautiful. But in early 2000s, people would bully me and say my hair was ugly and like yada, yada, yada. And like, I started perming it and relaxing it, and I was not being myself. And that's what I'm saying. It's not that physical features are ugly, it's our perception of them. But as soon as you change your perception of how you feel about these certain features, everyone else is going to start perceiving them as beautiful. That's how it is. That's how, if you look at the history of beauty standards, they vary widely from heavier to super skinny to long hair to short hair. People were like plucking their hairlines like all the way back, like Dr. Phil style. You know what I mean? Like, women were doing that. Foot binding, all these different things that you would think today, it's like, oh, how is this a beauty standard? But it was, because people just perceived it as that. But here's the deal. If you perceive yourself as gorgeous, beautiful, stunning, amazing, people are going to perceive you as that. This is a quote from me, I think. Someone else said it before. I didn't hear it. But this is what it is. This is literally the truth. When you believe, you will perceive, and when you perceive, everybody around you will perceive as well. That is the truth. When you believe, you will perceive, then everyone else around you will perceive. When you start believing you're beautiful, you'll start seeing it, and then everyone around you is going to see it. I'm telling you, there was a time I was like walking through a food court, and somebody dropped their phone because they were looking at me. I literally see people be enthralled by my beauty. And I'm not saying that to be, conceited. It's just a wild phenomenon that when I started believing I was beautiful, people started believing I was beautiful. But when I wasn't thinking I was beautiful, only crazy people were talking to me. And that's because I was sending out an energy of, I don't think I'm beautiful. Don't talk to me. Don't approach me. But only crazy people are going to talk to the person who's sending out an energy of, don't talk to me. Don't approach me. Right? And not to say I want to be approached, but it's interesting. It's a really interesting phenomenon. And that's another thing. As I've raised my energy, I've gotten a lot of people who have tried to not benefit me or not, add value to my life, but take my energy too, which is something you have to be aware of when you're doing this work, is that you will improve and you'll lose some people who don't want to improve with you, but also you will have people trying to get into your life to take from you. And maybe that's limiting belief, but again, I'm just telling you as my perception of events have occurred. That's my perception of the events that have occurred in my life. So, let's get back to defining. If you are defining yourself as ugly, as stupid, as untalented, that is why you're being perceived as that. Because you are sending out an energy of, I'm ugly, I'm stupid, I'm talented, don't care about me, don't worry about me. You have a negative energy, aura, whatever you want to call it, around you. That is the fact. That is the truth. If you want to be perceived as beautiful, interesting, funny, confident, you have to start telling yourself you're that. Because if you don't have positive self-talk, you are sticking to definitions that you don't even like, you will continue to be that version of yourself. I'll say this a million and one times. And I've said this to people, I've said this to clients, and they look at me like I'm crazy, but it's the truth. You could be a murderer, right? Murder people. And the minute you decide you're not a murderer anymore, you are not a murderer anymore. Why? Because you're no longer murdering people. You may have murdered people in the past. You may have been a murderer, right? And you may have can still be called a murderer because you have murdered people, but you are no longer actively a murderer. It doesn't matter what you have done in the past. It doesn't matter how you have defined yourself in the past. The minute you decide to be something different, you can be different. And people can look at me all day and be like, oh, well, how can you say that? Because I'm not saying the person isn't a bad person or hasn't been a bad person. But if people just would decide to be better and believe they can decide to be better, we would have a lot less problems in the world. Because people would just decide to be better. And that's the thing. The way that y'all want people to hang on to definitions of themselves is the very reason why there's so many issues, because you are convincing people that they cannot change, just as you have convinced yourself that you can't change. Now, am I saying trust people that have done crazy things? Of course, be conscious of your energy. But I'm talking about perception of yourself and how you can change your perception of yourself and live a different life if you do not like the life that you were living. Does that make sense? So, if your family has called you stupid, ugly, whatever, and you don't want to live by that anymore, stop living by it. And I don't care. I know there's reasons in your head that are cycling well, this happened or that happened, or how can I be different? Because I don't care. Do you look me in my eyes? If you're listening to this, pretend you're looking me in my eyes, or look at yourself. I don't care. I don't care. It does not matter. It is irrelevant. You have to let it go. You have to let it go. Because they are limiting beliefs. What's limiting belief? It is a belief that limits you. That's simple. It's you telling yourself that you can't do this when you don't have any real data to say you can't do it. Let me tell you something. When you tell yourself you can't do something, you're telling yourself you're not going to do it. That's all it is. I can't do it. Why? Because you haven't done it before? Okay, so what? There's tons of things that have, our world is constantly evolving, constantly changing, because people stopped saying they can't do something and they started saying that they could. And that's how innovation occurs. That's how growth happens. That's why we have a computer. That's why I have this microphone. That's why I'm in this building, because somebody stopped saying I can't and someone imagined and dreamed. And I'm not asking you to make the next iPhone. I'm not asking you to, do the next big thing. I'm asking you to care about yourself. I'm asking you to redefine yourself. That's all I'm doing. That's it. I'm asking you to live the life you want to live. Because when I tell you, and I'm not saying my life is perfect, right? Maybe you don't want my life. Maybe you're your life sucks, but I'm content with it. And I know everything's only going to get better. I know this. And you're talking to the person right now who literally half the time didn't want to be here. If you know what I mean. Did not want to be here. And now I'm I love it here. I love it. No matter what happens, it doesn't fucking matter. Because I have redefined myself. Let's talk about this. How have I redefined myself? I used to be, as I was saying, angry, easily triggered, easily like reactive. Not anymore. Not anymore. Sometimes I go back to being that person, but then I'm like, oh, okay, well, whatever. It's over. It's really when you accept the power of the fact you can redefine yourself in an instant, you'll feel so much better. That'll stop you from holding on to things that you've done, right? So, like, let's say you got a little quippy with a friend and they're over at this point, but you're just hanging on to it. Like, oh my God, I'm such a bad friend. Like, that's what's going to keep you being a bad friend, is because you are always so worried about being a bad friend. Your worry is what makes you be that person. And this is what it is. When you start developing a self-awareness, you will know when you're actually doing something wrong. And when you have that control over yourself, where you're not making yourself a victim constantly, you're just like accepting of like, oh, okay, like maybe this behavior wasn't proper, you'll take more accountability. That's the thing. Y'all beating yourselves up is not actually accountability. It's you making yourself a victim. It's you trying to run away from the fact that you did something wrong. So you're beating yourself up so you can make yourself a victim, so you can feel bad for yourself. That's not accountability. Accountability is simple. It's like, oh, I did that wrong. Let me not do it again. It's learning lessons. It's not this whole big dramatic, oh my God, I did this wrong. Everyone hates me. And oh my God, like I'm such a bad friend and everyone feels sorry for me. No, stop asking people to feel sorry for you. You don't need people to feel sorry for you. You don't need people to feel sorry for you. You don't need people to feel any type of way about you. I don't care if y'all are looking at me right now like, you're not even that pretty. You're not even that whatever. I don't care. You think that's never happened to me in my life? That people never said, oh, you're ugly or you're this? Girl, like I grew up in a town where people, in a world where people didn't really look like me for a long time. I don't care. People still don't look like me. I don't care. You don't have to like me, babe. I like me. And that's the fact, that's the truth. You don't have to think I'll be successful. I know I'll be successful. You don't have to think anything about me. You don't have to think I'm nice. You don't have to think I'm great. Whatever. I care if I hurt someone's feelings, obviously. But anything beyond that, I'm worried about you. And that's the mindset you have to adopt. You have to stop caring about what other people think about you. Stop letting people's definition, stop letting people's perception of you define who you are. You don't want to be that definition. Just change right now. Whatever it is you don't like about yourself, change it right now. Change your perception of it right now, right this instant. And I don't care what it is. You can be like, oh my God, but this part of me is so ugly. The minute you decide that it's beautiful and you really decide it's beautiful, you will feel beautiful. It's that simple. It's that simple. And let me tell you something. If you really want to change something about yourself, you cannot change it out of hate. You have to love the current version of you to grow into a better version of you. That is the truth. If you hate the current version of yourself and you hate it, you hate it, you hate it, you're like, I don't like myself, why would you put effort into something you don't like? Ask yourself that. You put effort into things you do like. So you have to start with self-love. And I don't care how stupid you feel. I don't care how much you're like, I don't love myself. Just tell yourself constantly you love yourself. Look in the mirror and be like, I'm beautiful. And really take yourself in, because like literally it's so difficult for something to be ugly. You've gone to a museum, right? And you'll see something that's like, oh my God, what is that? But it's like worth billions of dollars. You're like, that's so stupid. Because that's what people perceive it as. And that artist perceived this as a great piece of work and everybody else did. But you could be sitting there like, that's like paint splattered like this. But everyone's like, wow, that's paint splattered like that. You know what I'm saying? So you are the artist. Your subconscious or, like your consciousness, whatever it is. And your vessel is your art, right? Your life is your art. Your brain's the artist. Your body, your circumstances, your environment, that is the art. How am I going to paint and create something that I love and pour my energy into it so that people will hold it in high regard? And not that it matters if people hold you in high regard, but if that's what you want and you want to be that girl and walk into a room and be loved and adored and people think you're, awesome, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think there is a reality and there is a world in which everyone can love each other and hold each other in high regard and be like, oh my God, you're so unique. No, you're so unique. You're so amazing. No, you're so amazing. I think we can live in a world like that if everyone loved themselves and loved others. But the problem is people do not love themselves. So if you don't love yourself, that's when you start being mean to people. That's when you start lashing out on people. And that's when you start being mean to yourself. And, that's why we have a lot of problems. But I'm not here to solve all the world's problems. I'm just here to help you feel better at yourself, because I know what it feels like to be out of control and to feel ugly and to feel like, the less than. And now I don't. I don't feel less than. I'm like, wow, I'm beautiful. I'm amazing. I'm awesome. Because I love these parts of me. And I'm unique. And I love that feeling. Everyone wants everyone to feel humble for some reason. The only reason you want someone to be humble is because you don't like yourself. And so it bothers you to see someone love themselves because you cannot find that within you. And again, that's not a problem with the other person. That is a problem with you. And I'm not saying you put your confidence on other people, right? I'm not saying you should say, oh, I'm prettier than you or I'm more special than you. No, it's all internal. It's all holding yourself in high regard without comparing yourself to others. And so, if you want a more comprehensive understanding of this, I do have a program called the That Girl Program. I will link it. It is inexpensive. It's a video series, it's a book, and it's a workbook, and it's all the stuff I've done to become the version of myself that I am. I'm still going to have these podcasts, but if you want to do your own personal homework and kind of fast track yourself into this version of yourself that you love, that you hold in high regard, I would do the program. I'm only telling you things that I did for myself, but if you don't want to do that, no worries. I'm just letting you know the offer. I will be doing more of these podcasts, maybe once a week. Let's say that now. And you will hear from me again. And more importantly, I love you guys. I hope you got something out of this podcast. I hope you learn and understand you can redefine yourself right now. And literally take a second, close your eyes if you can. If you're driving, do not. And really, truly redefine that version of yourself right now. Hold yourself in high regard right now. Have the courage to do that. Have the courage to believe you can truly be the version of yourself that you love and you think is awesome, you think is amazing. And that's the podcast, guys. I will see you guys next time. Bye.